first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello everyone, this is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to download that Fox 12 Oregon app. Great way to watch us live or after the fact, and maybe you're already watching on there, so thanks for doing so. We cover a wide range of topics here on this show. If you are a frequent watcher, you know that. And this segment, though, we are speaking to an actor. I'm talking about Holt McCallany. Now, you may recognize him from such shows as The Waterfront, which is on Netflix, which we're going to be talking about, or a lot of other shows. If you just Google him and look at his IMDb, it's a lot of things he's been a part of. But one big one that I think a lot of people will remember and are fans of is Mindhunter. He is one of the guys from Mindhunter. So you will certainly recognize him once he's here on the screen with us. But I got to talk to him about The Waterfront, about his role in that, which if you haven't watched it, it's a show on Netflix. It's about a family in North Carolina who runs a fishing business, who gets involved with some, let's just say, shady characters, cartel members, and they, get involved in this criminal side of things. It's loosely based on the true story from the actual creator of the show as well, whose father got involved with some crime stuff in their small town from the fishing, trying to survive in the fishing industry. So that's a little bit of the backstory there for you. But let's jump right into it. Here he is. Here's Holt. The Waterfront. I love this series. It kind of covers everything that I personally like in a show. It's a small town. You've got the struggles of a family, but then you also have drug dealers and criminals showing up as well. So I like all those aspects, but there's more to it than that, of course. And for you, I'm curious for a show like this where it is, generally based on a true story, or at least, some things that actually happened in Kevin Williams's life, as far as some of that stuff. What do you have to do to prepare for a role like that? Because it's not really just a character that you're playing. It's also part of kind of his life.
It's such a great question. I think that every actor's process is a little different. And over the years, you kind of develop your own way of preparing, for finding a character, without getting pretentious about it. Orson used to say that in each of us, there's a poet and a priest, an assassin and a revolutionary, that you remove the things about yourself that don't correspond to the character that you wish to create, and what you'll be left with is the character. So, part of that included, talking to Kevin about his experiences and, and his relationship with his father. And then, part of it is about trying to identify what are the things about this guy that I recognize in myself. So in what ways am I similar to Harlan Buckley as he exists on the page? And in what ways am I different than Harlan Buckley? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the ways in which I'm similar to this guy as kind of a doorway into the character. And, and then there are also kind of like technical, considerations. For example, I'm not from North Carolina, and so I don't have a Southern accent. And so I worked with the great dialect coach, Timothy Monick, who is probably the best in the business, and all the major movie stars that you see, they're all, clients of Tim. He's the top dialect coach in the country. But I have to be careful because, first of all, Netflix, they weren't really interested in really, really thick kind of like a Southern, dialects, because I think that maybe, audiences in other territories might find that a little harder to understand. But also more importantly, my character grew up with a kind of a privileged background. You know what I mean? We were a wealthy family in that community, and consequently, I wouldn't have some kind of Appalachian, hillbilly accent. That's something that you see more in the western part of the state, up in the mountain, not sort of, along the coast. So you're trying to calibrate something and make it, make it authentic, but also make it accessible. And then, physically, like what is guy, I said to Kevin Williamson from the beginning that I wanted Harlan to be a strong guy with a weak heart. Okay, physically and metaphorically. So, I've had a couple of heart attacks, right? But he's still a guy like who takes pride in his appearance. He's still a guy who likes to believe that he's attractive to women. You know what I mean? He's still a guy that, but he doesn't follow doctor's orders. He still drinks too much. He's still carousing. So like a strong guy with a weak heart, also like, in terms of his family and in terms of the interpersonal relationships that he has with his daughter, with his son, with his wife, it's like he's got a weakness for them, all of them, and he allows things, to happen that probably he shouldn't. But but for example, my daughter, played by the great Melissa Benoist, is a recovering drug addict, and yet I see in her some of the same qualities that I recognize in myself. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's very hard
Right.
for me, to be tremendously judgmental. I try to be supportive, and and with my son, Jake Weary, I love him like more than anybody in the world, but I need him to toughen up a little bit if we're really going to be, doing business, with these drug traffickers, who are very violent, dangerous guys. And my wife, Maria Bello, it's like I have all of this, like gratitude and love for her for standing by me, even though I haven't always been a good husband. So it's complicated, and you want to make sure that all of those elements are always present, and so it's a very multidimensional character, and that's kind of what drew me to Harlan. Was I recognized all of these contradictions within him, and I thought that those would be really fun to play.
Yeah, I mean, that is a lot that you're balancing there. Now that you just described it, I mean, obviously, I'm just watching it on screen, so I'm not thinking about all those different things that you're going through. That's a lot to balance. You did mention, just the physical side of things, and I'm not going to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it, but there is a particular. I mean, we know that you're dealing with drug cartels, so there's probably going to be some violence that comes along there. There's one scene in there that was really pretty shocking that you were involved in. And I know we're about out of time, but I just want to say your portrayal in there, you made that seem very real.
What scene are we talking about?
Get something dropped on you. That's
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The famous jellyfish scene.
Yes.
That's what, am I allowed to talk about it? I get tortured by jellyfish. And there are some moments in an actor's life when you read a script and you understand this is probably the only time in my career that I will ever be tortured by jellyfish. It's just like not something that you see in a lot of scripts. And I thought it was very inventive, by Kevin. This is part of what makes Kevin a terrific writer, because we're a fishing family. We live on the coast. It's an aquatic, themed show. So why not incorporate that? I would say that my only contribution to that was I said to Kevin, can Topher Grace tape my mouth shut before his goons subdue me and so that I can be tortured by the jellyfish, because otherwise I'm going to be spewing invective. Do you know what I mean? Throughout the whole scene. Do you know what I mean? And we're lose that very dramatic moment when Topher gets close to me and threatens me and says, look, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm not just going to come after you. I'm going to come after your wife and your daughter and your son and your grandson, everyone you love, everyone you care about is going to die. Are you ready for that? You know, and it's a very powerful scene. And it's a very powerful scene. But anyway, you know, I don't want to spoil it for the audience. You got to tune in. You'll watch The Waterfront on Netflix. It's a great show. You won't be disappointed. Please watch us. We appreciate your support.
It's awesome. Thanks, Holt. Really appreciate your time. Also, Mindhunter, I will say, one of an incredible show. Hoping for another season of that. I know we can't talk about it, but all right, man. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time. You're awesome.
I talk about it, it just becomes this huge story. So you know, I don't want to incur the wrath of David, so I'm shutting my mouth. You know.
Fair enough.
Anyway, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Holt. Really appreciate it. All right, so again, there we go. Thank you to Holt for joining us for that segment. I know there's a lot of Mindhunter fans out there, so I tried to get it in there at the last minute. You know, you're on a kind of a time limit for those interviews, so I wanted to get something in there. Looks like he couldn't say anything about it anyway, but you can tell he wants that to happen too. I think we all do. But regardless, The Waterfront, great show, so something to check out there on Netflix. And again, thanks for joining us. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. We're here every weekday throughout the afternoon, starting at 1 p.m., covering a wide range of topics. And if there's ever breaking news, this is also the place to go for that. So we will get that to you as soon as we find out whatever that may be. That's what we're here to do. So download that Fox 12 Oregon app, take a look for our notifications. But otherwise, we have plenty of regularly scheduled content and interviews and segments as well, just like this one that we just did here. But that's it for right now. I'm going to take a break. I will be back on soon. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.